What is up, VS Gaming fam? It's time to get back into the hot seat of talking VS. And I'm so glad I'm here just in time for that Rocket League goodness.
See, we missed it last week. Great beer and happy meal. We're going in spitting nothing but facts.
You know what? Let's keep the vibes going with this week's topic. Gents, we all know that Rocket League is football with super-powered cars. Happy Meal, talk me through the similarities.
Okay, I think firstly, let's take a, zoom out a little bit. Let's compare esports to traditional sports. I think let's just start there. Sure. I think football, soccer has been around, hundreds of years. Sure. It's had a lot of time to develop. It's had a lot of time for, people to be interested. It's also like fundamentally a very simple game. And I think that is a huge contributor to its current state, the reason why it's one of the most watched sports in the world. And I think to get esports into that position, firstly and most importantly, it needs time.
Sure.
I think integrating esports into traditional sports it's an uphill battle. Like there's lots of resistance. I think there's a lot of people who don't appreciate it, and that's understandable. I think it's hard to make the similarities, but I guess that's why I'm here. So let's zoom into maybe Rocket League and football, for example. In my opinion, and this is going to be very controversial, I believe playing Rocket League is harder than any other sport in the world.
Happy Meal, relax, brother. We are in the first minute of the show. 1 minute
As in real sport?
Yeah. I think like besides the physical aspects of football, being able to be like conditioned and strong, I think Rocket League, for example, is harder, and I'll tell you why. Because when you start kicking a football and running around a field and passing and talking, those things you've developed before you even get onto the pitch. And if you arrive at a football coach and you can't walk, he's going to be like, what am I supposed to do with you? What am I supposed to do with you? In Rocket League, the game is so nuanced and so complex. Like every little aspect of the car and every input you give into the game is a direct input that is output. It's like a one-to-one. Every millimeter on the controller is a millimeter into the game. Except it's not intuitive. I don't think drive forward and the car drives forward like I do when I'm running with the ball. I don't walk forward. It's complicated.
So you feel inherently we are able to at least start playing soccer, and then there you learn the skills.
Yeah.
I mean, my friends I used to play with would disagree about that.
You're
my
right.
skills. But okay, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you.
So let's say we go outside and I give us a football, I don't think for a second any one of us would be like, wow, I don't know how to move forward. That's not a single one of us to think to ourselves, I can't move forward, I can't move. Look, kicking the ball around accurately and with control, it takes time. I mean, there's no argument, and there's lots of skill involved too. So, but in Rocket League, I give you the controller and ask you to play. You won't be able to touch the ball. You will not be able to touch the ball. Yeah. That is a significant step backwards compared to traditional sports. Yes, the physical aspect is non-existent. I think, however, training the muscle memory, getting to the point where you have control over the game and the ball and other aspects, I think it is equally as difficult as any other sport. And I think that's something to consider. I think it takes, on average, about 1,000 hours to actually start the game. Every hour before that, you're just learning how to just do anything. When you go pick up a football and kick around in the garden, you don't think about it, it just happens. And I think that makes a very good point as to why this game, Rocket League specifically, is actually a sport, opposed to FIFA, for example, which is...
What does the beer think?
There is always a desire to try and make new things look like old things, because we understand old things. So what are the similarities? How can it be similar? Whereas esport, and in particular Rocket League, is something new. There are new experiences to be had. It appeals to a different kind of people. There's value, I think, in looking at what is different than with traditional sport. We've come a long way in education. It used to be all about academic. If you didn't succeed academic, you were dumb, you were stupid, you were finished. Then it was like, there's more to a human being. Then we introduced physical sports, physical activity, and then you became rock stars if you played rugby, if you played football, if you played cricket. This is something new, where someone might not be gifted physically in football or rugby or cricket, but they're intuitive with something like Rocket League, and then there's a huge amount of development there. On the face of it, there's similarities. Rocket League is wonderful to understand for a novice. There's a goal, blue team, orange team, score in the opposite net.
Yeah.
So it's nice and accessible from that point of view, but then we get into the nuanced differences.
Let's say in a perfect world, we finally get schools to accept that esports is pretty much the same thing as traditional sports. How do we then get the schools more involved in bringing the kids into like esports leagues and stuff like that?
There are two things that get schools involved in esport and in Rocket League. From a school perspective, if a school can attain prestige and a little bit of PR and notoriety, they're very interested. You know, Happy Meal goes to this school and he's now the top player in the country. The schools, they're behind it. We want to be involved in that. The other is parents. The number of people, I know Happy Meal, you will have experienced this in our community, you know, where parents are going, why are you spending so much time in this game? And then they watch a stream and they see a few thousand people are watching it, and their child is being called out and how brilliant how brilliant he's doing. Suddenly the parents are like, now you got grandmothers in there, you got everybody watching, and then the parents want it involved in the school. So schools understanding what they get out of it, and parents seeing their children succeed in it. When you achieve those two things, the schools will be signing up by their thousands. And for me, there is nothing more important for the growth of Rocket League than the growth in high schools. And that's from a community perspective where my love and passion and drive is going to be in 2025, is hundreds of schools.
Has that been your experience?
In terms of, I think to add on to Grabian's perspective, firstly, the high school, it's the grassroots. It's where it starts. You know, you could even argue even before that, the primary schools. I mean, Rocket League is a for everyone game. So you could theoretically start earlier. I mean, I've played against in one of the tournaments recently. I think there were 2 or 3 kids there that were playing in just the schools league, and they were 10, 11. So you could argue maybe even primary school. But let's start with the high schools. I think that's the key aspect. So I went to a boys' school. I went to Parktown Boys, and I don't know if you guys know anything about all boys schools culture in South Africa, but it's very strongly navigated towards sports, right? And just kind of performance, building a name based on good results. And I think esports is a great avenue. And something you didn't mention, which I'm surprised, is I think esports is a great equalizer. I think accessibility is a critical factor to consider when you're talking about esports. You can be basically of any condition. You know, you can be, if you, let's say, don't have, like you can't walk, you can play. Right? And I think that becomes a great equalizer. So you mentioned, you know, obviously giving motivation to the schools and to support like the growth of esports. But something you did miss is supporting the players. Accessibility. Unfortunately, it's the reality that not everyone can afford to buy a PC that can play the games. But if schools took a similar budget that they take with their sports, like let's look at any boys' school, how much money do you think they dedicate to buying players, investing, like bursaries? It's a lot of money. It's an incredibly large sum of money. If they just took a portion of that and invested in some PCs, I don't know, 10 of them, they could have a rotating class, maybe once a week, twice a week, and they could introduce the entire school over the course of their duration, 5 years at the school, 6 years at the school, into esports.
Happy Meal has touched a nerve in me, okay, because I went to one of those boys' schools, and like, you know, Sibu in sports, things didn't go too well. You know, my mom had to come and watch me play D-team rugby, and it was tough. But then, like you're saying, every Friday, we were playing CSGO in the computer labs, and you know, I was doing something. There, I was actually doing something. Speaking of parents, how can parents then get more involved in Rocket League with their kids?
There's a number of ways to do it, and it probably starts with the most difficult part of the relationship, which is the student and their parents, because the student wants to lock themselves in their room and play and just game, and you know, my parents don't understand, and the parents are going, well, you know, the schoolwork's falling behind. So that relationship there can be a bit of friction there. So what I would love to see and be part of is actually going into schools, and you know, the parents teacher evening, get some people like me or Happy Meal, go there, engage with parents. For the most part, it's a knowledge thing, it's an understanding thing, that there are so many opportunities in esport, in Rocket League, so there is a potential for that time invested to be well spent. So it's multifaceted, but it starts with conversation somewhere, and it might just be in the school itself.
Do you guys think that it's going to be easier with the next generation of parents to explain such concepts?
I mean, without a doubt, I definitely think so. To add on to what Greybird was saying, you can even think about a more systematic approach. If you introduce it into the syllabus, if you introduce, just like sports, or introduce into
like
the
PE,
yeah, pretty much, yeah. So if you introduce once a week sessions on the computers as a class or as a grade or however you feel, at some point it will be integrated into the rest of the process of going to school. The parents will learn. Look, they may not agree, but I know many parents who would argue that some even sports, for example, is interfering with their academic results. You know, there's still parents like that, and I don't think, you know, for the foreseeable future that won't be around. But if we introduce into the syllabus, you know, it's systematic. It doesn't matter at what point the kids at least will be exposed to it, and that will definitely grow it.
My favorite story, we spoke about Devour in the last episode, and how he came to our attention was through his dad. His dad got hold of me directly and said, I've got this 12-year-old son, and so we've been playing Rocket League together, and he's just too good for me. He doesn't want to play with me anymore because I'm useless. I don't know what to do with him. Where do I send him? And it was through that process we got him into the competitive scene, and now he's a potential star for the future. So in answer to your question, absolutely. His dad is an old school gamer, and you know, so he's come up and he sees that his son's good. He got really excited in the same way that an ex-rugby player sees potential in their 8-year-olds, like, my boy!
It's my time to shine now. Let's flip it over to the HSEL. How do they help then the students get into Rocket League?
In one word, this is content.
Yes.
HSEL is already successful, but it has so much growth potential. Content, telling stories, making superstars of the high school champions, even those coming up. So throughout the season, highlighting the successes,
storylines,
telling great stories about how players are progressing. And when those stories are told, parents hear about it, teachers hear about it, other schools hear about it, and more get involved.
Do you have any examples of success stories from high school players who are making big names for themselves right now?
Jeff, and another name we've spoken about. I mean, Jeff is a great example. There's another one from Oosmoed as well, Banana Cat from Waterkloof, last year's champions. But they became names because they won. There are many untold stories in the lead up to these great events, and I want us to be focusing more on that in the next season of HSEL.
Oof, I love that. Happy Meal, tell me, if there's somebody watching, a kid in high school right now, he wants to be the next Happy Meal at some point, okay? And like you said, it's a little bit more, it's not a little bit, it's a lot harder to get into Rocket League as a game.
I believe so.
How do you think then they can start that journey into Rocket League?
Well,
I want to be Happy Meal, okay?
I invite a challenge.
Yeah.
Personally. So I don't just I encourage it. I seek it out. And I think Rocket League might be one of the hardest games on the planet, to be honest with you. So that is my story. The challenge in itself, I believe I probably would have been better at other games, but that's not what I'd like to do. It's difficult, and I seek it out. So I think what I can tell people, any player looking to be the next pro, I mean, don't be me. You can take inspiration. I will always appreciate it, but be your own player. I think that's very important. But if you want to be me, the first thing I think that needs to happen as well, accept that it's going to be a huge commitment for a very, very long time. There are very few players, a handful of them, that can not put in time and be the best.
Yes.
That is a exception, not the rule. And I'm the rule. I put in many hours, too many hours probably, but a lot of hours. I think that's the first step. Also, I think a really good conversation with yourself as to if you really want to become professional. Like it gets to a point, even I reached that point where the enjoyment diminishes. And I'm no longer playing because I enjoy it. I'm playing because I've already committed so much time. I have professional responsibilities. I represent an organization and a team, and I have a certain, accreditation behind my name. All these factors keep me responsible for improving. So it will get to that point. I think it's inevitable. So I think the biggest one is huge time commitment, and the second most important one is it's got to be fun. At least at least for the beginning. You gotta love it, like really, really love it.
Do you know what I'd love? Seeing Happy Meal playing soccer, guys.
Yes,
Happy Meal could go.
it's actually funny because I know in the beginning we made a comparison between football and Rocket League, and football, EAFC is so huge in the location. Do you think Rocket League is untapped potential, especially for places like the location? People who love EAFC could potentially end up loving Rocket League.
I think the untapped potential in Rocket League is almost criminal.
Yeah.
I think there are very few transitions from traditional sports to esports. Sim racing is one of them.
Yeah.
I think that's the closest comparison. It's almost identical. And then second, I would have to say is Rocket League. I don't think there is a better middle ground between traditional sports and esports. It encompasses everything a real sport does. It's not like FIFA where you press a button and your character kicks the ball.
Yeah.
No, I have to put the work in. I have to time it. It has to be precise and accurate, and it's everything the outcome of every aspect of the game is completely in my control. And I think that is identical to traditional sports. So yes, I think in the future, I think Rocket League, like many other esports, will be tons.
And it's a growth, it's going through a growth phase. Rocket League is still quite niche. And we're in the weird position in South Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, is that it was this niche, tiny esport that very few people knew about. And then overnight, 3 years ago, it became the highest paid esport in the region. So there's more money in Rocket League than in any other, but we're still small, but now it's growing. Let's talk about Talking VS. Last season, I think we had 2, 3 or 4 minute segments through the whole season. Now we get 3 episodes. 3 episodes dedicated to Rocket League. More and more schools are becoming involved. So we're going through that growth phase. But if you think about 130 odd high schools that are competing in Rocket League right now, how many high schools are there? So growth potential, I mean, it's massive, and it's such, once you get it, it is such an entertaining sport to watch and to be involved in. So I think there'll be huge popularity.
Greybeard, let's imagine there's a little Sibu, uhlala Soweto, and he wants to become a Jeff down the line. What can he do to start that process?
So firstly, get involved in the Rocket League community. That's my biggest challenge right now. There are a lot of people who play who are not aware that there's a community they can be part of. And from when you're involved in the community, you become aware of there's a high school league. And then my high school's not involved, so they can go to their head coach or sports or someone in the school and say, why aren't we doing esport? And then they go, well, because it's rubbish. And then you say, well, listen, can I give you a number to a guy named Greybeard? He wants to talk to you about it. So it can start there. And then also, again, if we can start telling these stories, more broadcasts of high school Rocket League, teachers will become aware of it. Parents will start asking questions of the schools, or someone in the school goes,
why don't
this
you
is
guys
amazing.
have Rocket League here?
Exactly. So it's really telling stories and continual exposure to the game, to the sport, to the players.
Oh, I love that.
Can I add something?
Of course.
Please.
I think like there's everything you've been speaking about, building HSEL, it's all been as an outside perspective. What the organization, what the schools, what the broadcast benefit. You've missed an inside perspective, what the players benefit from.
Yes.
I mean, at the end of the day, you can have the best league in the world. If no one's coming to play, I mean, what are you doing? So I'm gonna, as a player myself, I'm going to introduce an inside perspective. If HSEL can offer a professional, well-run league with incentive, potentially prize money, other rewards for their schools. I don't know, maybe sponsorships. I'm sure that it's endless. The possibilities are endless. I think if you can incite players, give them a reason to put effort into this opposed to anything else, that is also a huge advantage. As a player myself, it's something I consider all the time. Am I going to play this tournament because I feel like I want to enjoy competing, or is there a lot of money involved? Those factors I'm considering all the time. And if you give them a systematic league, something you approach it, you present it professionally to these high school players, not only will that incite the players, it'll also be easy to present them to the parents. Like, hey, look, here's the league, it's very professionally run, here's all the rewards we get, it's very systematic, it's professional. And I think that is a huge factor to consider as well.
Just to end off with something like another comparison, I just want to hear your favorite Rocket League teams versus your favorite football teams.
Well, do you know what's sad about that is it used to be the same, and I think we're touching on this in another episode. But if you asked me this question 2 years ago, it would have been Orlando Pirates.
And Orlando
for both questions, the Orlando Pirates rocket team, of which Happy Meal was a team member, and then of course the soccer team. Yes. So there we go. And further afield, Liverpool, but let's not talk about that.
I mean, but right now, as a Kaizer Chiefs fan, let me tell you, we're having fun. Okay, we're having fun. And you?
I mean, I'm a Buccaneer for life. Buccaneer for life.
Of course, that's where you guys would
Buccaneer
go.
for life. I mean, in Rocket League, to be honest, representing Orlando Pirates as a player, it's probably one of the most special achievements of my entire life. I don't know if I can really top that with much more.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to their facilities. I met the managers. I saw where these players, and to be honest, I'm not a huge football fan, you know, just between us. I mean, I appreciate the game and I watch it and I understand it, but I don't actually have a team that I follow. But going to the Orlando Pirates football club and being represented and how they treated us as players and how professionally they took it. I fell in love with the organization, and I got one fun before. Their kit is the best. I think
It is the best. I don't know, but it is beautiful.
I mean, it's the best.
I love that we are talking about the traditional sports, though, because I feel like in our day and age, maybe the early 2000s were a bit different, but right now soccer in South Africa is not necessarily what it used to be back in the day. And so I feel like it would make sense that parents who maybe would think the traditional route is better for their kids might think maybe esports is the way to go now, because being a Bafana player, you know what, great, we love our South Africans, but it doesn't have that same prestige as it might have had back then. And maybe that's where Rocket League needs to come in and take over and have that prestige. Can I get an amen?
Amen, Shamil. I'm just glad.
I'd love to be a part of that. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm just glad that we got professionals to come and speak on this subject, because my in-way to Rocket League would have been unsafer. Because I was going to tell a kid to get a car and a ball. Just let's see, practice in real life. But I'm glad we got the professionals to
At
speak.
least. Oh man, listen guys, it's good to be back. These chats, they just keep getting better and better.
Yep. I'm so excited where the intense HSCL stars will be in the 2 or 3 years time frame. The potential is endless, really.
Guys, next week we tackle the last Rocket League hurdle. But in the meantime, if you want to stay updated on all things VS Gaming, head over to @VS Gaming World.
But real life Rocket League would be fire.
It wouldn't, George.
It would be.
very
The
dangerous.
balls might need to be
It would be
bigger.
fire briefly.
Yeah, it would actually be fire. That's the problem.
Telkom. Possible begins here.